When we're talking about outsourcing in this part of Module 6, I want to get one thing very, very, very clear before we begin. There is outsourcing and then there's outtasking. I think that the way that people use the term outsourcing is often misleading, and what they really mean is outtasking. So let's talk about the difference between those two concepts. So outtasking is going to be your classic Rent-A-Coder job or your classic Fiverr task. It's going to be something that you're hiring the person for a one-off job, and that might be creating a web script for you or fixing something on your server that you can't fix yourself, or some other thing that you will only need to be done once. It's also going to be a job that you don't expect that this person is working only for you at that time. They're actively pursuing engagement from other clients on sites like Odesk or sites like Rent-A-Coder or sites like Fiverr. And so they may be doing lots and lots of jobs. And you are definitely not going to be their only employer. And also without tasking, you may never work with that person again, since it is a one-off job. They get the job done, it's done right, and theoretically you may never have another job like that and may never speak to them again. So that's the basics of outtasking. This is a one-off job. This is something that you're not going to need again. This is a relationship that is not going to be long-term, and that you guys are both working together for a short period of time to accomplish a very set and specific set of goals, and once those are done, you guys both go your separate ways. Now, outsourcing, on the other hand, is really just like having a real employee, but they just happen to be virtual, not necessarily in your actual office or in your actual home office for that matter. So with an outsourced employee instead of an outtask employee, you'll be in a situation, because they're kind of just like a regular employee, where you're going to provide training for them. And you need to be able to take the time to get them up to speed with things. You need to understand that you will need to train them to your specific way of doing things. It's kind of like the difference between hiring a programmer to program something for you, and you just sort of tell them, hey, I'd really like this software to do this thing, and then they create that for you, and you have no idea how that actually takes place, versus having somebody come into your organization, and then you really start to talk about the look and feel and your company's goals long term, and how you would like this new project, this new software to really convey your company's mission and goals and that kind of thing to its customers. So you have a lot more freedom to guide your employees into your way of thinking when you're outsourcing, and to train them into the way that you specifically and personally want things done in your company, as opposed to just being sort of stuck with or working with that outtasker's way of doing things. And as a sort of logical next step, when you have an outsourcer, you're going to be giving them feedback. And that can come, of course, in a formal review, but it should also come very much in the beginning, but throughout their time with you guiding them as far as saying, hey, that was a really great job on this project, or this looks really good, but I'd like you to work on this aspect of it instead. When I give feedback to a graphic that somebody has made, I would never say to them, I just don't like it. I would say, I think that the font is too bold, and that there needs to be a little bit more depth behind it. Maybe a shadow would help, and that red is kind of garish, and maybe there's a softer color that can be used and that would blend better. So you want to be specific in your feedback that you're giving your outsourcers too, because you're investing in them, because they're going to be with you for some time. And so you need to be ready to and willing to and capable of giving feedback in a way that is constructive criticism as opposed to just criticism. Outsourcers will also have potentially long-term projects with you. So you might assign an outsourcer to do link building on a particular site, and that link building project could go on for quite some time until that site ranks. And even after that site ranks, the link building project could continue so that the site continues to rank, depending on the complexity and competition of a particular keyword phrase, that could go on for a month. It could go on for a year. So outsourcers will have long-term projects that you anticipate and expect that they will be around to continue to work on, and that they will also kind of have ownership of. And of course, that depends on the kind of projects that you have in your company or the kinds of outsourcers that you hire and their capabilities. But you will be able to give them responsibilities, whatever those might be, and then you're going to assume that those responsibilities continue to be taken care of throughout the time that they're working for you. Now, we kind of touched on this in the feedback section, but outsourcers are folks that you're going to really invest in their long-term growth. And part of that, of course, is giving them feedback in their work. But another part of that is also providing them the opportunity for professional growth, and that might be via training courses or ebooks or videos that you make where you kind of explain your philosophy behind things. But whatever opportunities you have to learn new things yourself are probably really great opportunities for your outsourcers to learn new things too and get a bigger and wider perspective on this internet marketing business that we're a part of. So outsourcers are folks who you will want to invest in the time, the money, the products, the communication tools, perhaps like Basecamp or whatever you choose to communicate with your outsourcers. But they're going to be the kind of folks that you want to invest those sorts of things in so that they can grow with your company and become better at what they do, and therefore be providing better results for your company. And of course, there are people who over time, you're going to build a relationship with them. I've had one person that's been working for me for, I believe it is nearing on 4 years now. Maybe it's 3. Regardless, quite some time she's been working with me, and she's started out as a part-time outsourced employee, and she's been with me a really long time, and she's fantastic. And I have a relationship with her, and I am invested in her success and in her growth. And I would assume, based on the quality of her work and her commitment to her work, that she's also invested in the growth of my business and my company and my objectives. If only for a paycheck, she's a nice person, and she seems genuinely interested and concerned in how we're going to move forward as a company and willing to contribute to the company as a whole. And one of the things too that you'll get with your outsourcers when they are an employee, when they're an outsourcer as opposed to an outtasker, is that because you have that time to build a relationship with them, and you ask after their family and they may ask after yours, and you kind of get to know each other on a professional level. Of course, I don't mean anything inappropriate, but over time you learn things about folks, is that they start to have pride in how the work that they're doing is affecting the company, or in how they're getting better at certain things. And that's all part of that relationship building too. You want your employees, whether they're outsourcers or whether they're in-house employees, to be really invested in the company and in the work that they're doing. And you can't get that with an outtasker. So what's better, outtasking or outsourcing? They're different, but here are some of the reasons why in Always Be Shipping you're going to focus on outsourcing more than on outtasking. So outtasking can be an absolute time suck, and that's because every time you need a new job outtasked, you have to go to the sites where you can find the workers, you have to submit a job, or you have to contact a bunch of workers. You then have to go and interview them, look at all their profiles, decide who's going to be best. It's an utter time suck to hire somebody, which is why companies hate when they hire somebody and then that person leaves in a month or 2 or 3 or that person has to be fired, because it takes so much time to hire somebody and then get them fairly up to speed so that they can start to do their job, that when somebody leaves a month or 2 after being hired, they have to start that process all over again. And it's a massive time loss, which leads to it being a massive money loss for any big company that does this kind of thing on a large scale. For you, that's almost more important because you're just one person, and you have a very limited amount of time in your day. There's 24 hours in your day. There's not another person and another person and another person working at your company who can take on some of these responsibilities for you, which is, of course, why we're looking to hire an outsourcer. But you need to focus your time not on hiring somebody every 2 weeks to do some random job that you've come up with, because that's a huge, huge time suck. I mean, interviews alone can take, an hour at a time, let alone the emails back and forth to arrange the time of the interview and all that kind of stuff. So outtasking is a huge, huge time suck. You've got to send people passwords again and again and again. You've got to establish which method you're going to use for communication. Is that going to be Skype? Is it going to be, Google Talk? I don't know. But it sucks because it just takes up a lot of time. Now, outtaskers also really can only do the specified job that they were hired for. They're not flexible. If your outtasker is an article writer, then they're going to do article writing and they're not going to do anything else. If your outtasker is a programmer, then he's going to do programming and nothing else. If your outtasker is a graphic designer, then he's going to do graphic design and nothing else. So when you hire an outtasker, you realize, of course, that you're working with somebody who has a very limited scope and they can only do the one thing that they were hired for. They're only willing to do the one thing that they were hired for. And as such, you're not going to be able to use that person for other things that might come up. Now, your outtasker might suck. And, this can be true, of course, with a new outsourcer as well. But with an outtasker, usually you're committed to really needing this specific project done, whether that's a writing project or a programming project or a graphic design project. And with an outtasker, you can get stuck, and I'm sure that you've had this experience before where you have hired somebody to do something and either they're not giving you quite what you want, or it's poor work that needs to be improved, or it's just delay, 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 one after another with excuses and, oh, I'll get it to you tomorrow, and that sort of situation. And that sucks. But now you're committed to this person, and now you're already late, and you really need the project to get done. And so what do? You know that you can't go back and hire somebody new, because then you'll have to go through that whole hiring process again, and really you needed the stuff yesterday. So you get stuck in a thing where then you're still trying to work with this outtasker who has already let you down, and you're carrying on because you feel like that's your only option at that point. And getting stuck in a situation where you're either going to accept subpar work or you're going to accept very, very late work. And that's not the ideal situation, of course. And I don't want that for you. Now, with an outsourcer, you have a lot more flexibility in terms of giving deadlines. And of course, you can hire the wrong person, but then you can also let them go if need be and hire somebody else. And because this is a long-term permanent relationship, once you have found the right person, you'll know going forward that they don't suck because they've been working for you for a while and you've trained them in the way that you do things and the way that you meet deadlines and the way that you want your projects completed. Now, outtaskers also might just not be available next time you need them. Now, because they've taken on several employers, they might need you and need your money to complete a certain job, but then realize, a month later or 2 months later that they're getting better jobs than that now and that they're no longer interested in the kind of job that you present and could turn you down. They could also just be interested in the job but super duper busy because they've made other commitments and therefore you can't work with them again. So this is a really great example of why hiring outtasked article writing and outtasked link building isn't really effective, because while you may not need a permanent and full-time employee to do, say, just article writing or just link building for you, and those are things that can be outtasked, the problem is that when you find somebody really, really great, they may not be available for you in a month or 2 or 3 when you need that job done again. And that's a big problem, because then now you've got to go back to the drawing board. You've got to go back and find somebody. You have to go back through that posting a job, interviewing, and hiring process, and you're losing time, and with that you're losing money. And for that reason, we don't want to look to outtasking as the outsourcing mode that we're going to be looking at in Always Be Shipping. So it's for all of those reasons that I look more at outsourcing to a permanent worker rather than outtasking to a series of transients who are going to come and go over time. And with Always Be Shipping, we're focused on content creation, and we will talk more in the other Module 6 videos about what kinds of tasks you can give to your outsourcers in terms of content creation. But I don't want you to forget that you can also give your outsourcers other tasks as well, not just content creation. So one of the favorite tasks for outsourcers is, like I talked about, it's link building. Really, it's tedious. Most of us kind of dislike the process, if not hate the process, and it can be hired out and completed more regularly, and they'll probably do a better job than you would in the end. So link building is a really great job to give to your outsourcers in addition to the content creation. That same outsourcer that is doing content creation and link building can often do some basic webmaster duties too with a little bit of training. You can teach them how to install WordPress. You can teach them how to install and upgrade plugins and get a new WordPress site all configured and set up, and get all your plugins configured and set up exactly how you want. A lot of times they can do some simple graphics work, like making a little header banner for a site. And no, it's not going to win any design standard awards, but they can certainly create things that are good enough and that will work for your sites until maybe that site gains a whole bunch of legs and you really want to invest some money into getting something super professional done. But they can oftentimes personalize graphics. They can oftentimes do some basic theme edits with CSS or HTML. Basic stuff, not creating a whole new theme for you, not doing the impossible. And that's all stuff that generally that they can do with just a little bit of training, not a whole lot. You can also do the virtual assistant side of things, and that could be personal things that you need help with, personal research, or it can be work related. So for example, one of the things that I outsourced, actually I got 3 things for you this week. Tumblr.com has experienced quite a resurgence in growth lately. And I decided to take my Tumblr site, which had previously been used. I was just feeding tweets and blog posts automatically into my Tumblr site. And I've decided to take that Tumblr site and do something new and different and interesting with it, as opposed to using it for just aggregating content that I'd published elsewhere. But when I go to the Tumblr site, you know, it's got like 2,000 or 3,000 old aggregated pieces of content on it that no longer really fit the goal that I want with that site. Now, I have a really cool username. My username is Michelle. So it's michelle.tumblr.com, which I don't want to give up. So I could just delete the site and start a new one, but I really don't want to give up that URL. I really also don't want to delete 2,500 posts because there's no really fast way to do that. So that's something that I gave to my outsourcer. Now, it isn't her top priority, but it is something that she's going to do for me over the next few days in her slower time. So, I mean, you know, that's something that I don't want to do. It came up. It isn't a regular job, but I made a 3-minute Jing video and sent it to her, and she's going to handle that for me. Another job that I gave this week was to moderate posts in a forum. There's a forum that I own that was getting some spam attacks, and it's in a niche, and her job was to go and moderate that. So again, I made a 5-minute video and showed her how to handle the moderation, and now she went in, she deleted 6,000 spam posts or something like that on the forum, and then is continuing to monitor it daily to make sure that new stuff doesn't show up. So that, again, not necessarily content creation or link building or basic webmaster stuff, but it's stuff that your outsourcer can do for you too. And this is just stuff that came up for me this week. I've had also this week an outsourcer looking for a theme for that forum. I wanted a new skin for it. I wanted it to look a little bit different. And so I've got an outsourcer who, rather than me going through pages and pages and pages of skins that are available for this kind of forum, I asked her to go and find me 10 really good looking themes and send them to me, and then I could pick the best out of that, so that I'm not spending 2 hours looking through all of the links and going, I don't know, I mean, this one's okay. You know, I've got 10 to pick from. I ought to be able to pick from that. It should take me 10 minutes instead of 2 hours. So those are just a few of the examples of some of the totally random things that have come up just this week that I've assigned to my outsourcers. Even if you think that you don't have enough content creation tasks to keep an outsourcer busy full time, when you add all of the other things like that they could be doing for you, all of the things that you could be taking off of your plate, it's absolutely 100% the way to go to get an outsourcer and stop messing around with outtasking. Starting to outsource, I did that about 4 years ago. It completely changed my business, and it will absolutely change yours too. And you can still maintain a high standard of quality content when you're outsourcing. And sometimes I'm afraid that people think that outsourced content or outsourced link building or outsourced anything is crap. And it's not. It's just that some folks allow their outsourced workers or even train their outsourced workers to not produce high quality stuff. And you don't have to do that. So we'll talk more about that, how to get really great high quality content, where to find your outsourcers, how to train them, and how to work with them in the next videos. So I'll see you in those.